Hi guys, and welcome to the Live with Nikki Show. So we're having a little bit of technical difficulties here this morning. We're trying to get Dr. Granat in the show with us so that we could talk all about adrenal fatigue. He is joining us from Chicago. So we are just waiting for him to join, and we are going to be talking about adrenal fatigue and what that means for moms and women in general, and how that affects all of us, because I don't think that enough people know about it, and it's something that I've suffered from. So I know that I've talked a lot about diastasis recti. So a lot of people, they think, oh, why do you have a mommy belly? And when you have, belly around, fat around your belly. Hold on one second. Let's try to get him on. When you have fat around your belly, a lot of times it is from adrenal fatigue. Hold on. Just trying to get him on here. Just bear with me, guys. This is a good live, so we hope that you all ask comments and questions and tune in. And Dr. Granat has, I don't know if you guys saw the other post, but Dr. Granat has an approach to medicine that's different than a lot of Western doctors. A lot of Western doctors typically like to do a band-aid approach, and they don't get to the root of a problem, and they just like to throw medicine at you, and they don't really look at what is causing or the dysfunction in the body, which a lot of Chinese medicine focuses on. So, one second. I'm going to introduce him in a second, but if you guys have any questions about weight loss or weight gain or health issues that you're suffering from, hopefully we'll have Dr. Granat on again in the future. Let's see if we could get him on here. We had technical difficulties this morning. We've done this before. I don't really know why this is happening. Hold on. Ooh, look how bright I am. Hope all of you guys are doing well this morning. It's almost Friday, which is very exciting. Okay. I don't know what's going on, guys. So I wanted to talk, if those of you that are just starting to join us now, and let you know that we are talking all about adrenal fatigue. Dr. Edward Granat, a doctor based out of Chicago, is going to be joining us. We're just trying to have some technical difficulties. Hi, Jill. Thanks for joining us today. And Dr. Edward Granat is going to be talking about adrenal fatigue and why moms get burnt out, and if you do, what you could do about it. A lot of it leads to high cortisol levels, and it has belly fat around your abdomen. So, like I've said, I've suffered from diastasis recti. And I also, I was asked recently last week while traveling, if I'm pregnant. And so, no, I'm not pregnant, but I do have a pooch. And the reason why is because I have high cortisol levels. I'm burnt out. I'm probably not taking care of my body as much as I should. I like to run around and do a million things. I'm running PINK&BLUE. I'm doing consulting as well. When you don't take care of your body, that's what happens. You kind of, let's see. So when you don't take care, you kind of get burnt out, and then you're running on low. And no matter how much diet and exercise you do, according to Dr. Granat, isn't going to help your belly fat. Oh, there's Dr. Granat finally. Woohoo! He's on. He'll be joining us in 1 second. I see the box come up finally. Oh, you love
Can you?
technology, guys. Hi, Dr. Granat.
Oh my gosh, this is
How
such
was
a
that?
perfect
That was
topic for adrenal fatigue and stress.
yeah,
This was awesome.
a little stress this morning. Thank you for
Yeah, I
joining.
apologize. I'm going to be holding my phone, so it's going to be a little all over the place
Yeah, it's
because I
okay.
wasn't set up.
You can let it lean against
Okay.
something on your desk if you want.
Yeah, let me see.
I
Let me
just
see
have
if I
mine leaning
can
against my
do.
computer. So
Okay,
thank you
let me
for
just
joining
see if I.
us. So he's just positioning his camera, but doctor,
Yeah.
you're sideways now. Just put it the other way. Put it straight.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, what? There. Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
that's good.
Okay. It's okay. Don't even worry about it because I'm holding this in such a funny way. But it's
Okay,
all
no
good.
problem. So
This
Dr.
is.
Edward
Oh my
Granat
gosh.
is based out of Chicago. He actually studied your undergrad was in Toronto, right?
Yes, I actually studied in the University of Toronto. Yep.
Right. And then you went on and you went to Chicago after that? How did you wind up
Yeah, I
in
was at.
Chicago?
Yeah, well, it's actually a funny story to that. So I have Eastern European parents who said you're growing up to be a doctor no matter what. So
Right.
I was actually in pre-med and I got accepted into dental school, but unfortunately I was not able to afford to go to dental school. It was in Boston at the time, and the tuition was just crazy. And a friend of mine. Couple of weeks before we were graduating, I bumped into him like, "What are you gonna do?" I said, "I can't go to school. I don't even know what to do." He's like, "I'm gonna be a chiropractor." I'm like, "Chiropractor? What's a chiropractor?" He's like, "It's a doctor." I said, "It's a doctor."
No.
Good. It's a doctor. What does it do? What does he do? And I said, he explained to me what it does, and then I went to chiropractic school. So I was never gonna be a chiropractor. And then, interestingly enough, in my first year of chiropractic school, I got into a plane crash. And that really showed me what chiropractic was all about because they wanted to do surgery. My left leg was almost completely paralyzed. And they wanted to do surgery on me, and I refused. And I had to take a year and a half off of school.
Hmm.
And chiropractic and acupuncture has actually got me back on my feet. So that's where I really started to understand the value of things. But that was still very far away from understanding all the effects that this kind of stress was having on my system. So that's kind of how I got into the whole chiropractic thing.
Okay. And so as I was explaining when I was going on and off the lives, and probably people in the group now because I don't know how to share it to the group from here. I'll do it afterwards. But um, so I was trying to explain to people that a lot of doctors that are Western doctors don't really focus on getting to the root of a problem. They're really focused on the band-aid approach and throwing, especially in the States, and I'm from Florida, so I'm American. Shout out to all the
Yeah.
Americans out there. Um, and if you all would like to know, I'm Canadian and American, so don't get you're in.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So, um, I think that a lot of doctors like to throw medicine and pills at a lot of things. And for those of you that don't know, and I was telling you, Dr. Granny yesterday, is that I have a lot of health issues, right? So I suffer from migraines, I have Crohn's disease, I have ankylosing spondylitis in my spine. I've also suffered from adrenal fatigue, but a lot of doctors either they don't believe that there's really a problem because well, you look fine, or um,
Right.
or they just dismiss what you're trying to say. I went to the doctor, a recent story, and I said maybe you could answer this with adrenal fatigue, is that my glands always get really swollen before I get my period. And
Yep.
so I said, but I thought at this time it was different. I thought I had strep, which a lot of adults don't get strep. And she said to me, "Well, your quick strep test came back negative, and I just want you to know that, now we finally figured it out. You have chronic fatigue. So I'm going to call, your other doctor, and I'm going to tell them that, we figured it out. You have chronic fatigue." 3 days later, it comes back that I have strep. So I think that a lot of doctors, they don't really get to the root of the problem. And part of, learning about what you do and connecting with you, the thing that really sparked my interest is that you get to the root of the problem of what patients are going through. So can you talk more about your approach?
Yeah, definitely. So just like you, I came from a lot of health problems, and I also went through the experience of going to doctors and the doctor saying, your blood work seems fine, so you must be fine, and so here's some antidepressants for you, and have a nice day. And I'll answer the question about your strep, how that relates to adrenal fatigue. And so I had to go out and learn things for myself, nutrition-wise, and blood work and all those kinds of things to try and fit the pieces together because I went through a period of time where I went through such a significant stress that I couldn't eat for 3 years. I could only eat soup for 3 years. And so I had to do something for myself. Otherwise, I didn't know where I was going to wind up. And
Right.
so my approach right now, when patients come in, this is actually called, it's a functional medicine approach. And more doctors are actually waking up to this approach. And this approach actually looks at you as the whole person, because you notice when you go to a doctor, they pass you from doctor to doctor. So nobody really looks at you as a whole. So this
Story
doctor
of
says,
my life. Story of my life.
right?
Yeah.
It's so frustrating. They're like, oh, this is outside of my specialty, so I'm going to send you to this doctor. So let's say you come in with a symptom like you were saying, you have, swollen glands. So they'll look at you and say, okay, if it's not swollen glands, then it's not my problem anymore. I'm going to send you to this doctor. And then that doctor looks at your digestive system, let's say, well, your digestive system is fine, so that's not me, so I'm going to send you somewhere else. And each time you keep getting passed and passed on like this, you're like, I mean, nobody's figuring it out. And even worse, some of them say they'll find something, and now you're on 4 different medications for 4 different symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
And so my whole approach is to say, hey, why are we just treating the symptom? Let's take a look at the whole body. So what we do is we do a specific, more specific testing to see what systems are actually going offline. So in the case of adrenal fatigue, since this is what we're talking about, a lot of patients will present with such, a variety of symptoms, and it's different for everybody. And so what my job is to say, hey, I think that this may be adrenal fatigue. Now, I have to go and do some blood work. So what kind of blood work am I doing? I'm looking at things in the blood work for cortisol imbalances. This is one of the major hormones that you need to pay attention to. I'm looking for things like if you're a woman, I'm looking to see if your other hormones are out of balance. And this starts to give me some kind of indicator as to what might be going on. Your minerals might be out of balance. And if doctors are not taught how to interpret these kinds of tests, then they may miss the whole point and they're like, oh, just your minerals are a little out of balance, you're completely fine. So in functional medicine, we have to make sure to go to the root cause by doing specific kinds of testing and then recommending lifestyle changes, not just dietary changes, not
So,
just giving a person.
so going backwards, because we kind of jumped the gun with my story, but what is adrenal fatigue for the people that are just joining us, and what is the cause of adrenal fatigue?
Okay, so basically it's the breakdown of your system that handles stress. So
Okay.
you basically just become burned out. So there's a system in our bodies that's designed for survival, that's designed to make us run away from danger, right?
It's a
But
fight or
we,
flight.
exactly, right?
Right.
The problem with that is that system was created thousands of years ago, right? So in today's society and where we live, our stresses are completely different than they were thousands of years ago. Before, we were running away from a saber-toothed tiger, but then once we ran away, we
Right.
had time to rest. We had time to recover.
And
Today,
yeah, sorry to interject. So that's like the like we were talking about the blood types. Like blood type were hunter and gatherers, and they had the fight or
yes.
flight to respond to that stuff. So like I don't know if all of you guys remember from psychology class or medicine. When you studied science, that's something that we all learned.
Right. And so what happens is when you have this prolonged stress like we do, so the saber-toothed tiger today is, the bills you can't pay. The saber-toothed tiger is your kids, acting out in school, behavior problems. The saber-toothed tiger is a
Right.
divorce. It continues, and it's like, but the problem is all these. I like to give my patients an example. It's like you keep leaving these apps open, right? So your mind is constantly going, and eventually the computer system, your system becomes bogged down.
Mm-hmm.
So stress is very accumulatory, and so if you don't do something to take it out, your system ends up burning out. Unfortunately, and I don't know in the perceived future if this is going to happen, our system has not gotten the update. Our genes have not evolved to handle the kind of stress we live in today. So people end up burning out. And what that means is your body stops being able to produce the hormones that are responsible to handle stress. Things like adrenaline and things like cortisol. Those are I'm not going to go into the intricacies of all the different hormones, but that's what people understand. So those hormones become off balance, whether there's too much of them or too little of them, then we start to develop specific kinds of symptoms. And at the end, when this becomes very intense, a lot of people experience out, which is, and so, did we just get cut out for a second? Because
Yeah,
I
it
got
was
a
cut
little
out
pause
for
on my phone.
yeah.
Okay, so what I was saying is, so that's when people burn out. So there's about 20,000 visits to the medical doctor for people who experience fatigue. I mean, this gets to a point of where you can't get out of bed. People come in, they can't do a simple task, like it's a chore for them. This is probably an indicator that you may have something pretty wrong with this system. So it's because of the accumulated stress that we're not used to taking out of us. It could be chemical stress, nutrition, things that we're breathing, emotional stress, loss of a loved one, which, by the way, it's 1,000 times more powerful than physical stress and chemical stress. So emotions play a big part when we have adrenal fatigue. So this is why it has to be a multidisciplinary approach to try and clear this problem. You can't just take a medication to get out of it.
So some doctors, Western doctors, like my doctor sent me to an endocrinologist, and I felt like
Yes.
my thyroid was off, which is related to the adrenals. My
Yes.
thyroid is kind of borderline now, but they were saying, no, we don't, there's no such thing as really adrenal fatigue. If you want to go to a naturopath, you can. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Jill. Hi, Andy. If you guys have any questions, be sure to ask Dr. Edward Granat. We have him for a little chunk of time, so we have to use his knowledge. So is there proof or research? I mean, why don't Western doctors treat this, and are they able to, or they just don't know enough about it? I mean, what's your take on that?
So I think, I always say, don't blame the doctor, kind of blame the system. And it's what's being taught, I think, across medical schools, but a lot of doctors are waking up to it. But I think we have to use the right terminology. So there is a lot of documentation for adrenal fatigue, except that's not what it's known for. It's very easy to explain adrenal fatigue to a patient. You tell them,
Okay.
your system that is responsible for stress is burned out, and there's these two little glands that sit on top of the kidneys, and they're burned out. And the patient understands that. The patient gets that. But when we're talking, if you want to speak the lingo of the medical doctor, the research, it's more on a system level. So it's basically called an HPA Access Dysfunction. And what that basically stands for is hypothalamus pituitary. That's the part of the brain that actually controls everything else in your body, including the adrenal glands. So if you call it hypothalamic pituitary adrenal dysfunction, then the doctor will say, oh, okay, I get that. And if you actually go into PubMed, which is a big research kind of thing on the internet, and you punch in adrenal fatigue, you might get under, I don't know, 20 papers. And it's still not proven. But if you go and punch in HPA Access Dysfunction, you're going to get over 20,000 papers. So if your doctor doesn't believe that you have this dysfunction, you just have to explain to them that it's HPA dysfunction. And then he'll say, oh, okay, now I understand what you're talking about. So yes, there is a lot of research. And to go a little bit deeper, this is why this has such reaching effects inside your body, because you said your thyroid was like out of balance, and then you went to an endocrinologist. So we have to understand that this disorder can affect so many different systems in our body. And for me, for instance, it affected my digestion, because when we're stressed, we can't digest our food, right? And so for somebody else, it could be a thyroid problem, because too much cortisol in the system will put the thyroid offline, because the thyroid is basically the brake that looks out for anything, says, uh-oh, there's something wrong. Let's slow things down so we don't burn out. And so when you understand that how other systems interact with everything, you understand how someone can experience so many different symptoms when they have adrenal fatigue.
So my question is twofold. So you mentioned digestive, which I'm going to get into because somebody has a question about it. But the other question that I have for you is, because it sits on top of the kidneys, I also went into almost kidney failure. My kidney, I was born with it anatomically turned. And I had to have kidney surgery, like a pyeloplasty, which most people aren't going to relate to. But because it sits on top of the kidneys, could it affect the kidney?
It's unlikely because they're kind of two separate systems. It's like if you said, the lungs sit on top of the stomach and the lungs affect the stomach. Yeah, I guess you can make a connection that if you're not breathing right, then you're not getting enough oxygen to the stomach, but not in the way that structurally that they would affect one another unless there's some kind of a tumor growing off of the kidney and pushing on the adrenals. Do you know what I mean? So if there was some kind of pressure on the adrenal glands structurally because something is wrong with the kidney and it's pushing on something, then possibly yes. But as far as, function goes, they have two separate functions.
Okay, so another question which might be more relatable to the audience that somebody had. So Jill asked, is it common to have adrenal fatigue with Crohn's disease, which I also have Crohn's? And if so, how do you treat it?
Okay, so is it common to have a better question? When you get adrenal fatigue, meaning because cortisol is very influential onto the immune system. So when that hormone starts to get off balance, it affects the immune system. And then if the immune system gets affected, it can start to attack our own body, which is kind of like what Crohn's disease is, right? So yes, adrenal fatigue can affect different kinds of autoimmune disorders. Crohn's disease is a very severe kind of disorder. So I can't answer in two questions how you would treat that, but the main thing that I tell my patients is patients don't give enough attention because they want to come into the doctor and they want a pill or they want a supplement or they want like this 1, 2, 3, what do I do? It's good to get that, but unless you really go in and do work yourself on taking this stress out, whether it's meditation, whether it's prayer, whether it's going outside for a walk and just disconnecting yourself, it's taking time for yourself, which most, especially moms, don't get to do anymore. And when they come in, they're running on empty and they still have to do all those things, but they can't do it because they haven't scheduled that me time where they de-stress. Have you ever seen like shows where like there's like it's a cop show or a police show, and then they, after some stressful event, they bring them in and they debrief them?
Right.
Have you ever seen that before?
Yeah.
So this is the same thing, right? When we have a stressful event, and we have them so many times a day, we kind of need these de-stress, but we don't do it enough. So the first thing that I would say is like just something simple. You don't even have to go anywhere. It's just breathing techniques can work so amazingly well for de-stressing you, right? And what I have my patients do when they're breathing, I really have them notice a state. Like I say, on a scale of 0 to 10, how stressed do you feel? It's very important because that's when people start to become in tune with their own systems. See how stressed you feel and where do you feel the stress? Like, is it in your chest? Is it in your stomach? See where you feel it. And then when they get more in tune with their body, they start to be able to tell that they're actually stressed. Say, when you notice that, start to do whatever breathing technique, whatever meditation. And after 10, 15 minutes, again, take a check and see where you're at, like 0 to 10. And you'll be surprised what 5, 10 minutes of just focusing on your breath can do for stress.
Right.
So that would be a great thing that you can do.
I mean, and something you guys know, like people that have been following me, that I'm into crystals. I have crystals all over my office.
Oh, that's awesome.
I have this from Sage, and it's a peppermint oil. So it's just like a stick that my neurologist told me to get. So it's a roll-on and it's peppermint. Yeah. I mean, these are little things. It's just sitting on my desk right in front of my computer. So whenever I'm stressed, I roll it. Like, right. These are little things. And my sister is like asking, does it mimic bile acid malabsorption?
Okay, so that's actually what happened to me. So it can have an effect on your digestion because when we're stressed, we're in fight and flight response.
Right.
Our body's not worried about digesting food. Our body is worried about pumping blood to our muscles so we can get away. That's why we feel the tension. That's why we feel this kind of like hollow feeling in the stomach, kind of like when you're hungry and you didn't take enough food. It just doesn't feel right in there. So it can definitely mimic bile acid dysfunction. And that's exactly what I had. And so I have to take, even now, I still have to take digestive enzymes. So it's important to sit down, not watch TV and all that stuff that we don't do, not important not to eat on the go, just to really take some time, get your system more relaxed, and then start to eat.
We're just cutting out for a second.
Sorry, I lost you for a second.
Did you, like, how did you change your diet for that?
When I first started out, I actually did the worst things I could possibly do because I didn't know any better. So obviously I was eating soup. And then when we go to restaurants, I'm like, I can't bring soup with me. So what I would do is I would eat a ton of fruit, right? Because my body could digest it. And so I'm like, okay, great, I can do fruit. So I'd literally bring these big bowls of strawberries, and my friends would laugh at me because I looked normal. They're like, you're really weird, okay?
Right.
So, and I would eat fruit. And next thing I know, like 3 months later, I almost became diabetic because fruit is, with adrenal fatigue, cortisol, this we'll get into weight loss and weight gain about that. Cortisol is a hormone that makes you gain weight. And if you eat too much sugar, you're going to off balance that system that controls sugar. And then the adrenal glands, which are also responsible for maintaining blood sugar when we're not eating, have to go through an extra stress of trying to maintain that. But if that mechanism is already broken, that just puts an added stress on your system. So I had to figure out that, yes, fruit is good for you, but it has to be at the right time. So through a lot of trial and error, I started to seeing what my system could handle. And it was a lot of smoothies. It was a lot of juicing, but not juicing from fruit. It was juicing from greens. I made some disgusting juices, but I have to say, people could not drink them, but I didn't care. They were making me feel better because my body stopped being able to absorb anything. I couldn't take a single supplement without reacting to it because that's how damaged my system was. And so what my system could handle is natural food. So I always like to give my patients real food before I pack on any kind of supplement. So it was a lot of smoothies, it was a lot of juicing. Then eventually, when I found the right combination of digestive enzymes, I started adding in protein. Anytime I ate like bread and pasta and anything to do with gluten, I didn't know it at the time, but it was throwing my body into such brain fog. Like I'd be standing and talking to somebody and they'd be like, "Are you listening to me?" I'm like, "I'm trying to listen to you," but I literally must have appeared to them like I wasn't even paying attention to them because I couldn't understand what they were saying. I could hear them talking, but such brain fog, and that's again your immune system reacting to everything that's going into your body. So for anyone with adrenal fatigue, you need to cut out the gluten, anything to do with gluten, most of the processed foods, and you want to stick to doing things like obviously lots of vegetables and protein that's easily digestible. Vegetables too, you might want to cook them because your body may not be able to digest the raw stuff. So obviously that was trial and error, and it took me a while to get to
that. If like someone was asking, like if you don't have a colon, does like if you had a colostomy bag with Crohn's, would digestive enzymes still work?
You have to, yeah, because so there's different kinds of digestive enzymes. There's digestive enzymes because most of the digestion happens above the colon, right? So there's them depending on what kind of deficiency you had. There's the upper part of the digestion, which is your stomach, right? And if you're not secreting enough hydrochloric acid, which is what you need to break down the food, then there's digestive enzymes freeze that. Then there's the second and third part of the digestion, which is your liver gallbladder, which emulsifies and breaks down fats, right? And so there's things that are good for that, like increasing beets, which thins out the bile, and bile salts, that's what it's called. That's a different kind of digestion. So you would take that, and then your pancreas needs specific kinds of enzymes. So I would be careful with somebody who has that, but I would test at very small dosages specific supplements in order to help them digest the food. But I definitely think it would definitely help them.
Right. So thank you guys all for joining. We just got cut off. What was the last thing you just said, Dr. Granat?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah. It's cutting out for a second, guys. Just
Okay,
1 second.
there we go. Okay.
What were you saying? It's just cut for a second.
I was saying, I was just, I don't know where I cut out. So basically, I was saying that I think that digestive enzymes can really help somebody with Crohn's. You just have to be careful that they're not getting aggravated with it. So you would start with a very small dosage of the appropriate digestive.
Okay, and if people want to get in touch with you and use your services, can they do so from like other locations to see you?
Oh, absolutely. People all over the, yeah, I work with people with all over the country from the States. I have a couple of people that I work with in Canada.
Out.
Most of my patients are in the States, but yeah.
Okay, and how would they get in touch with you?
So on my
somebody's
website or on my Facebook page, it's Dr. Granat on Facebook, and you can also reach me for my website. The website is called granatwellnesscenter.com. Granat, like my last name, Granat, wellness and center.com, and then you'll be able to get all the information about everything that I do and any questions that you need answered. There's a phone number that you can contact me at.
Okay, awesome. So how does adrenal fatigue affect weight? Like I know that I have, like I was saying, like I have the mommy tummy. So obviously,
yep.
But before I even get into that, what are the symptoms that like, besides being burnt out or feeling tired or having a brain fog, like you mentioned, what are the symptoms that people see? I mean, obviously the weight gain around their tummy, which I have.
Yeah, I mean, we went through a lot of symptoms, but I'll tell you. So when there's different symptoms at different stages of adrenal fatigue. So when you have, let's say, not say adrenal fatigue, adrenal imbalance, you may start to experience cravings. Okay, those are some of the first things. You may crave things like sweets or salt food, right? We all know the whole thing with stressful eating, like people want to eat when they're stressed out. A lot of people do, not everybody, but a lot of people do. So when you start to experience things like that, that's something that can give you an indicator that you have an issue with your adrenal system. And you may get achy. So this kind of chronic pain, because cortisol controls inflammation in the body. And when there's too much of it, the body becomes desensitized to it. Or sometimes there's not enough, and then it can't use it to put out the inflammation. So you can get things like joint pain, or you can get things like back pain that's reoccurring, right? Things we said, we already said brain fog, but the other thing that you can get is low tolerance to people. So when you just don't tolerate people that, they're incompetent or road rage and things like that, when you start doing that, or when you come into a room and you need to organize, this is out of place, I need to organize it. Those are all symptoms and signs of adrenal fatigue, because the body is searching for ways to keep it that's orderly.
Cutting out 1 second.
Then we can, then the system just tries to make us do those things. Decreased libido is a big one. When you have too much stress, the body is not worried about reproducing. It's worried about keeping you safe. So for women and men, that can manifest as decreased libido. For women, as infertility at extreme things. We already talked about weight gain. You can get dizziness. You ever stood up and you got a little dizzy or lightheaded?
Yeah, I don't get that, but I'm
me?
orderly. Like I've gotten more OCD over the years. Everyone's yelling at me that
okay,
I can't leave the house.
Okay. So
pillows perfect and all that.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah, I'm the same way. So, but for some people, especially in the elderly, when they get up and like, oh, I have to sit down for a second.
Right.
So that is a hallmark symptom for adrenal insufficiency, because the adrenals control blood pressure. So they cause the blood vessels to constrict. So then when we get up, the blood doesn't rush from our brain back into our feet. That's actually an interesting test somebody can do at home. It's called the Raglan's test. And basically what you do is you relax for 4 minutes while you're lying down, have your blood pressure taken, right? Normal blood pressure, let's say, should be 120/80. And then after you have your blood pressure taken lying down, you stand up and have your blood pressure taken standing up. And the blood pressure should go up by about 6 to 10 points. So the 120 should go to 126 to 130. And that's normal because now there's the stress of gravity pushing down. So the adrenal glands have to respond by constricting the blood vessels, causing the blood pressure to go up, right? If you have adrenal problems, the blood pressure will not go up while you're standing. It might even drop. If it's extreme, it might go up too high. So then we know that that mechanism is broken. So that's an interesting test that someone can do. Another test that you can do, which coincides with another symptom, is we run out of breath. Like when we go up the stairs, we can't catch our breath.
I get that all
We
the
can't
time.
catch our breath. Or like, you know, when you get really stressed out, you're like, you're trying to take that deep breath in, but you can't because you just like, oh my gosh, it's just so stressful. That's an adrenal problem. So another test somebody can do is relax for, it's best to do before you eat in the morning. You relax for a few minutes, get nice and calm, and then take a deep breath in, breathe it all the way out, plug your nose, and see how long you can hold your breath. If your adrenals are fine, you should be able to go at about 40 seconds. If you're giving up at about 10, 15 seconds, you have an adrenal problem. So those are some of the symptoms that people can experience.
We just cut out at the end of that. So you have an adrenal problem if it's 10 or 15 seconds, and then what did you say?
Oh, sorry, we cut out. So basically, if you are not able to hold your breath for about 40 seconds, the way that I just described, you have an adrenal issue.
Okay.
Because adrenals are that's one of the functions of the adrenals for lung capacity.
So, well, number one, I mean, people are like, oh, why don't you diet and exercise? So I was, I can't, no matter, I eat healthy.
Yes.
Exercise besides doing yoga, I can't do because I get out of breath and I actually need an inhaler. And I don't really have true asthma, but I get it induced with cardio. So I'm sure that's now makes sense related to all the adrenal stuff. So what does somebody do when they're, obviously you're getting weight gain around the belly, you could change your diet, you could do stuff to relax. And you were saying there's some blood tests that you could run with a doctor and so forth, but like what else could you do once they find these issues?
So as I've said before, the reason why you gain, like you have to change your diet. So that's one of the main things that you have to do is you have to change your diet. There are specific herbs and supplements that you can take, but like I said, the biggest thing is that de-stressing as much as possible. So I'll give you an interesting case. So most people are taught that if I have a belly, I have to go and exercise, right? But if your body is already stressed out, then it cannot, exercise is perceived as a stress. Although it's a positive stress, it's still perceived as a stress. And if your body's already stressed out and you put more stress on it, and now you're producing too much cortisol while this is happening, well, I have patients that are actually going out and working out and gaining weight. And it's because of that imbalance in hormone. So for those people, you might need to do a very light type of exercise. All you might be able to do is go for like a nature walk and things like that until you are able to give the adrenals the right support through diet, through de-stressing, and the right supplements, which I'll talk about in a second. But as far as that belly fat, the reason why you get it is because when the body perceives danger, as I said, it produces the hormone called cortisol. Just as an aside, if you've ever had pain or somebody's ever had pain and has been given cortisone injections, because you've heard of cortisone injections, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people will say, oh my gosh, after I took that cortisone stuff, I gained so much weight. Well, why does that happen? Well, because the cortisol in your body mobilizes sugar to get away from the danger, right? And when sugar goes up, well, then insulin goes up. And insulin is a fat storage hormone. And so when insulin goes up, you're going to store fat. And the reason it happens around the belly is because that's where a lot of vital organs are. So your body's just trying to protect you. Now, back in the day, during our ancestors' times, when we would get stress from going hunting, and then the stress would go away, next time we go hunting, we would work off that stress. But right now, that stress is us sitting on the couch and thinking about all the problems that we have, or the stressful day at work, or the boss, and we're not working off that energy. And so that belly develops. And if you do not take care of the hormone part piece, no matter how much exercise you do, it will not go away. It's the de-stress, take away the sugar. That's the most important thing, is get rid of the sugar and the sweets. And that will help with the belly fat.
Okay. No, I'm really finding this interesting. If any of you guys see me just gazing at Dr. Granat, just because I'm so intrigued by this, is something that I've been suffering for so long and I didn't know what to do. So I'm really just taking it in and concentrating on what he's saying, not just doing an interview for fun. To educate everybody. It's really like, this is something that I'm interested in. So when I'm staring like that, it's because I'm really listening and I'm taking notes as I'm talking to you, actually. So
Yeah, okay, cool.
what supplements do you recommend, for me suffering from this, to take?
So obviously the main supplement is your B vitamins, especially B1, because when you're under stress, your body just dumps so much B vitamins.
I take
so
B2.
B vitamins, that's fine, but you need to take a complex, and then you want to look into something that's called nutritional yeast.
Okay.
You ever heard of that?
Yep.
So that I always like to give some aspect of the vitamins in a natural form, because the body just knows what to do with that, right?
Okay.
And then I also like to give a little extra in a supplement form. So you want to focus on your B vitamins, and I love nutritional yeast. It's got kind of like a cheesy, nutty flavor.
Yeah.
So you can put salads. I like to put it into different kinds of fritters that I make. My daughter can't tell the difference. She loves them. So oh, this tastes a little cheesy. I'm like, okay, perfect. Just eat it.
Put it on
popcorn.
I put it on popcorn.
Yeah, absolutely. The main thing to be very, very careful of is the carbs, right? So even though popcorn is perceived to be a healthy snack, it will turn into sugar inside your body.
Oh, that's great.
So
no popcorn anymore.
So the body's it's an extra step for it to get turned into sugar. And as soon as you pump sugar into your body, then insulin turns on, and that whole mechanism, I can't get into it right now, but that whole mechanism, once that sugar mechanism and stress mechanism is broken, it's kind of fluctuating up and down. So every time it's doing this, the adrenal's like, oh, danger. So I have to control it. Oh, danger. So you're putting the adrenals under stress when they don't need to be. So stop eating sugar and simple carbs, and the adrenals will get a break. So number one supplement is the B vitamins. The other supplement that's really important is potassium. So a lot of people are very deficient in potassium. You have to be careful with potassium if you have kidney problems. So things that are high in potassium are things like avocados. Do not go for the bananas, because everybody goes, oh, bananas have a lot of potassium. Yes, they do, but they're also very sweet. So you're going to be defeating the purpose. So you need about 6 to 8 cups of vegetables to get your daily limit of potassium, greens, okay? And so that, 1 ounce is about 1 cup, because obviously you're not, the measurements is not, 1 cup is 8 ounces of water, but it's not 8 ounces of vegetables, okay? And then you have some really good herbs for that. I like to get, I don't know what you guys have in Canada, but here we have an amazing supplement called Adrenal Tonic. And it's an herbal supplement. It's liquid, and it consists of 4 different herbs. Romania, which is really good. It's an adaptogenic herb. Ashwagandha, echinacea.
I did ashwagandha.
Yeah, that's a main one that a lot of naturopaths will prescribe. And then licorice root. Licorice root, by the way, for all of you guys who have low blood pressure, like, oh my God, I can't get out, I can't do anything. Licorice root will help with that.
So there's the Adrenal Tonic, which you said, Romania, ashwagandha, licorice root, and what was the other one?
Echinacea.
Echinacea, okay.
Yeah, so you guys might not have that, but if you know those 4 herbs, you can look for different, because it's really hard. I try not to give my patients more than 4 supplements to take.
And everybody, just so you know, this is you know, we're getting information from Dr. Granat, but please see your medical doctor before doing anything. And go
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. I'm not giving dosages. I'm just telling you what I do for my patients and for myself.
exactly. So we're just
Thank you for mentioning
candid
that.
conversation,
Yeah,
try to educate everybody in some of the health issues that I was going through. We thought that it would help other people. So always check with your doctor naturopath before doing anything, because everybody's body is different and everyone's doses are different. Even at the health
definitely.
food store, I was like telling you, you know, sometimes they have a naturopath sometimes working there and they'll give you advice and whatever, but I still consult with my doctor
Absolutely.
before doing anything.
I can't tell you how many times I've had people come in and both people have adrenal fatigue. One takes the supplement and feels 100 times better. One takes the supplement and feels 100 times worse. And it's because they didn't look to see the levels of their hormones. One may have low hormones, one may have high hormones, but they present as the same symptoms.
So
So
could
that's
your
important to know.
doctor, could a regular doctor, I mean, and I was asking if I could do it through you as well, like, could a regular doctor do the blood test for you and know, like, will they know, or is it better to go to a naturopath that tests your blood?
I would think naturopaths are a little bit more in tune with stuff like that. So usually when you test for adrenal insufficiency or adrenal fatigue, you would do a saliva test.
Okay.
I would always do an in-depth blood test because it shows me all the other systems that may be on or offline as a result of that. And then there's an interesting test. It's called the Dutch test, DUTCH.
Okay.
Again, I don't know if you guys can order it through Canada or not, but it's actually a urine test that looks at all the different metabolites, how your body processes these hormones. So saliva test is probably what you will be introduced to as the first test, because you can't test cortisol. Not that you can't test cortisol in blood. You can, but cortisol fluctuates throughout the day. So if you went and did a blood test for cortisol at a specific time, it wouldn't show you the information that you need to know, because cortisol, just to give you an example, needs to be low in the evening so we can go to sleep, and
Mhm.
high in the morning so we can wake up. If that fluctuation changes, like, we have those people that wake up at night, the night owls, that means their cortisol is going up at night. You would never know that if you just did one blood test, because it wouldn't show you how it cycles. So the cycling of the hormone is just as important as the amount of the hormone. That's very important to know.
Okay. That's such great information. I mean, I'm really happy that we did this topic. I know it was
Yeah, me too.
I was
Thank you.
personally going through, but I think that it really, like we were saying, relates to a lot of moms and on the go. And, you know, I'm the type of person
Yeah,
that I thrive off of being busy, but, you know, I'm all about mindfulness, but sometimes it's hard to take your own advice and really stop and listen to your body. And when you're sick and your body's shutting down, it's a reason, is your body's trying to tell you that you need to do something different or take time to rest. So,
absolutely.
I think
Absolutely. I can't.
that all of us kind of have to go through in life.
Definitely. I can't tell you how many, moms that just had their babies. They don't know what to do themselves. They're crashed and they don't sleep and they have to do all this stuff and they don't know what's going on with them. And it's presenting and they're scared and confused, and some of them just don't know what to do. And most of them end up going through the medical system, which confuses them more, puts them on these heavy duty drugs, and doesn't actually get to the root of the cause of the problem.
And what about like coffee? Like, I'm having my second cup today. I'm always
Well, a lot of people that have adrenal issues have their coffee, and why do you need to do that, right? Because you're going to cause your adrenals to secrete adrenaline, right? Well, it's epinephrine, norepinephrine, but for everybody, that's why they're called adrenal glands, from the word adrenaline. So when you have a cup of coffee, the caffeine causes your adrenals to give you a shot of adrenaline, which makes you more sharp so you can continue doing things. Is that a good thing to do? Probably not when your adrenals are out of balance, because the whole point is we want to give that mechanism time to rest. Notice this, here's something really interesting for you. Most people have these, so we have if you look at Starbucks and the ways that our days are kind of structured, Starbucks has a rush of time right, in the morning, obviously, people have their coffee, lunchtime, around 2 o'clock, after lunchtime, people need a pick-me-up, and
yeah.
around 4 o'clock when people have that crash. The reason why those times are important is because that's when cortisol cycles in our body. And so those are the times usually during the day that people will need a pick-me-up.
Right.
And so if you're one of those, it's interesting. Back in the day, I don't know if you ever heard, do you remember Dr. Pepper? Not that I've ever drank it, but do you remember Dr. Pepper? Like it's some
Yeah.
soft drink, it's a
Yeah.
soda. So
Yeah.
they used to have a commercial, drink Dr. Pepper at 12:24. And I was, before I didn't know why do you have to drink it. Well, the reason why is because that's when cortisol falls and people need a pick me up. So that's
So,
something interesting.
but should you like, two things, questions I have, and I know we have to wrap up soon, but we went over time, but it's so interesting. So, one question is if you're, I was on adrenal medicine. It was like a pill that had a bunch of different things in it. That was like multivitamin for adrenal fatigue. It was actually called adrenal
Okay.
fatigue. But the naturopath told me only to use it for like 3 months or 4 months
Yes.
until I start to feel better and go off of it. So that's one question. When you're on all these supplements, once you start feeling better, you're supposed to kind of go off of them?
Okay, so the answer is it depends. If you're in things like supportive type of supplements, like B vitamins, most people are deficient in them. Things like minerals, like magnesium, which is
Right.
important, potassium, which is important. Those kinds of things you can stay on. But the herbs and maybe there are some kind of hormone support inside those supplements. Those definitely you don't want to take for a long time. You take them for a period of time. Herbs can be taken during times of high stress, but for most herbs, I definitely don't recommend you stay on for a long period of time. So in short, the answer is the supportive kind of stuff, like the regular B vitamins, minerals, you can stay on that for extended periods of time, but specific things that give, specific functions a boost in the body, like the hormone system,
Right.
those you need to get off of as soon as you can.
Okay. And then my next question is, so if you're not drinking coffee, because it's going to shoot your system more, should you take something? Can you have like matcha tea, or could you have something a little bit more?
You can. You can. Again, you have to see how you feel. My wife, she was big into coffee. And then I told her, I said, she also had the issue with, the belly fat and, the crashes and all of that stuff. I said, you have to get off the coffee. You can't do it. She's like, I can't function. Like, I can't think. I can't do my work. I need to be
Right.
on. I don't want to read something 10
Right.
times
Right.
before I make a decision on it. So I said, okay, we have to try the tea. So it was great. She's like, I'm going to do green tea, which has a little bit of caffeine, but it also has a lot of other things that can calm the body down. But then she started doing like 4 cups of it.
Right.
So all she was doing, so I'm just trying, don't fall into that trap. You can find something that's less intense than coffee to see if it works for you, but don't start drinking, 4 cups of tea instead of 1 coffee because you're just overdoing it with the caffeine again. But to answer your question is, yes, you can find substitutes. There are also different kinds of supplements that you can take that will help you become more focused without giving that extra kind of stress onto the adrenals.
Okay. And one of my issues is like with the coffee is when I went off of the coffee, my migraines got worse, which I know is a whole separate issue.
Okay, so do you remember what? Yeah.
Sometimes.
So what I'm saying is, right. So what I'm saying is it's a very individual kind of thing, right? You have to see. So if I go off the coffee, what happens when I go off the coffee? I get these crazy migraines. So then you have to make a judgment call. If I can't function like that, then that's, there's one thing that I'm going to do that's bad. The coffee, I'm going to de-stress more and give my adrenals a little bit more support, and maybe I can get away with doing that.
Right.
But again, it's all about the testing, right? If you're going and saying, okay, I'm going to do this 3-month program for my adrenals, I'm going to de-stress, I'm going to do the right diet, when I'm going to have my coffee. And we check your hormones, and your hormones in 3 months are completely better. Well, yeah, then you can get away with having your coffee. But what if they're not better? And we have to say, well, you know what? It's not getting better. Could it be the coffee that's doing it?
Right. And that's why everything's individual, guys, and check with your
Absolutely.
doctor.
Be very careful when you come to a place that gives everybody the same supplement, does everything the same on everybody, because everybody's different.
Right. And so the last thing is, I think we covered mostly everything. The last thing is like I was mentioning too, is like a ketogenic diet, which I looked into. I have Crohn's. It wasn't really something that I was into. I mean, I like the Mediterranean style diet. But is that something that you suggest for people with adrenal fatigue? We're just cutting out for a second. Well, he'll be back in a second.
Just cut off you. I heard you say Mediterranean diet. Oh, I think we're frozen.
Yeah, I think we're good now.
Okay, there we go.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. So as far as the ketogenic diet and the Mediterranean, I would say everything to do with their adrenals is kind of a multi-directional approach. So I like the Mediterranean diet because you're not cutting too much stuff out. You're not putting focus on any one thing. With adrenals, that's what it's all about. It's kind of getting yourself to a point where it can handle specific kind of stresses. And Mediterranean diet, it's vegetables, it's protein. The only thing I would say with the Mediterranean diet is you got to cut out the gluten and the carbs, the simple carbs and things like that. So dairy, absolutely. And the big things, soy, dairy, corn, all the big allergens, you have to cut those out, right? With the keto diet, it can be very good for specific things. I wouldn't say it's so good for adrenal fatigue. First of all, because when you have adrenal fatigue, you usually have a blood sugar problem, right? Because your blood sugar is not being regulated, right? When you're on keto, you're not going to be able to get into ketosis if you have a blood sugar problem. It's not going to happen, right? So you're going to be like, oh, I can't get into ketosis. Now I'm stressed out. Now I have to do this. So you just want to keep things as simple as possible until your body gets to a point where it's resilient enough to try something else. Now, if God forbid somebody has, cancer, I would say keto is the way to go because you're excluding sugar and things like that. And so I would definitely try and stay. But you could still do good fats on the Mediterranean diet. You just don't need to go so high on the fats that it doesn't allow your body to take in the rest of the nutrition.
Okay. And what about, somebody was just asking about specific carbohydrate diet?
Specific carbohydrate diet. Is that a diet? Is that somebody just asked?
Jill, is that a diet? We'll see if she comments. We could always answer afterwards. You could go into the comments.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. But I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add. I think that we covered everything. But
I think we covered everything. That was awesome.
I think it was really educational, and I learned a lot. I definitely am excited to work with you personally. And I'll let you guys, we'll continue to do lives on different topics. I think that this is something that was a good starting point because I think it relates to a lot of moms, and a lot of people I didn't even know till I read, like I told you, till I read the Medical Medium book, what adrenal fatigue was.
It blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of treated myself, but I told you, but I just asked the naturopath in the health store. And they gave me something to take, and I was feeling better, and now I'm burnt out again. So it's
that's usually what happens. A lot of times with adrenal fatigue, you never get better like this. With a lot of things, it's never this slope up. It's usually, oh, I get better. Oh, really? It's gone. And then next thing you have this crash.
Right.
Like, oh, this sucks. I can't believe it. It's back. But that's what I noticed through my own experience. That's how the body gets better. It gets better. And once it gets better, it's like, okay, now I'm strong enough to dump this next level of whatever is stressing me out. And then you feel crappy again. And so you need to understand that that is normal part of the recovery process.
And I think also once you start feeling better, then you're like, oh, I could go out and have a drink, and I could do this. And
yes. Oh my God.
You start eating things that you shouldn't be eating, and you go off your diet, and then you wonder why you're not feeling well again. It's like,
exactly,
like you said, it has to be a lifestyle that you can adopt,
absolutely,
not a trend. And if it's not something you could adopt to your everyday life that you keep doing, you're just going to wind up in the same vicious cycle of getting sick again. I should tell myself
very well said. Absolutely. Yeah. I can't. This is like the best.
It's true. Right. Well,